Relationships ain't easy, and unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to change that, but you can enjoy them more. And if you approach them the right way, they can be more than worth it. So I'm John Sanders. I'm a husband, father, brother, sharing the mistakes and successes that I've made in my own relationships so I can help you with yours. If you're single, struggling to get a date, or if you're married and you feel like you're a million miles away from the spouse that's sitting right next to you, I got something that's going to help you. We're going to have fun, you're going to laugh, but most importantly, you're going to learn something that's going to help you take your relationship to the next level. Or if you don't have a relationship, you'll learn something to help you get one. Let's jump into the podcast.
Hey, welcome back. We're going to continue on our step-by-step mindset when it comes to dating. So we went over friendship, we went over dating. Today we're doing the official step. And of course next week's going to be engaged. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to define being official. We're going to go over what you should learn about this person during this step, the purpose of this step, like we do always. And then this is something important because the official step's a little different from the other steps. But I want to go over a plan, so how to remain faithful and keep each other's trust. It's important. So, let's jump in. Defining the official stage. What does that even mean? Well, I can tell you that you both agreed to not see anyone else. So, again, this needs to be a conversation just like it was in the dating stage. It wasn't implied. This is something that you are being very, very sure about. So you're making sure the other person knows. So you need to have some kind of conversation. For me, I know when I met Angeline and I decided that I wanted to be official, I wanted to ask her, so we were already dating. So I took her out to a park and, we had fun like we normally do. And then I just sat down with her and was just, of course, I keep things pretty simple. And I was just like, look, I've enjoyed dating you. I've enjoyed this time with you. And I really want to make this official now. So we had a talk and I let her know. And it was obvious. So she knew we were on this step. And then during that talk, we defined what titles we would use. So that's just another part of this. Now that you're official, you have titles. You introduce each other with titles. You're no longer single, on Instagram, TikTok, etc., etc. So you guys decide what titles you want, boyfriend, girlfriend, how you're going to refer to each other. But this is where the titles come in. The official stage, things are getting serious, so it's also time to really meet the family. So maybe you met a sister or a brother or something, but now it's time to meet the whole family. I just want to say, even though it is a serious stage, just have fun with it. Again, dating shouldn't be a job. It should be enjoyable, it should be fun, getting to know somebody, and just have fun with it. Okay, so we know what being official is. So what should we be doing during this stage? What should I be learning about the other person? Why am I even in this stage? What's the purpose of it? So I'm going to give you a list. And this list is important to have. But you don't have to do all of this the second you become official. And when I say do all of this, I mean have the answer to these questions. You don't need to sit down day one and say, hey, here's 70 questions. We're going through all of them. So spread these questions out. Again, make it fun. It shouldn't be an interrogation. It should be more of just like, let's learn more about each other. Let me let you learn more about me, and I want to learn more about you. So you both get to share. So the first thing, You want to learn as much as possible about this person before you get engaged. So you want to know stuff like, do you want kids? How many kids do you want? You want to learn about their family dynamics. How do you see gender roles in marriage? Do they want to wait until a certain age to get married? Do they want to be married at a certain age? What are their dreams? Their career, the place they want to live, the ideal family, etc. So these are some general things you want to know about them that'll help you know if you really want to spend the rest of your life with this person. So obviously the kids question is a big one. Usually people are pretty polarized on this. They either want kids, and that's a deal breaker, or they don't want kids, and that's a deal breaker. Family dynamics. You want to know about this because the way you grow up and the family dynamics that are modeled for you, that tends to be how, when you start your own family, how you run your family. So you want to know about that. So getting to know the family, you want to learn the good and the bad. This kind of goes along with learning about the family dynamics. You want to know if they have a crazy uncle or aunt that everybody rolls their eyes when they come around. You want to know if there's been some type of abuse or whatever like that. And if there has been abuse, it doesn't mean that it rules out this person. But you need to know about it because it's going to be something that you're going to have to deal with. But you guys can do it together. When you're with their family, how well do you get along with them? Some in-laws are kind of crazy. They don't seem to have boundaries, and they're constantly trying to tell you how to raise your kids, how you should be doing your finances. Well, he shouldn't be doing that. He should be treating you like such and such. Can you live with that for the rest of your life? Because you're not going to just marry the person. You're going to marry that person and their family. So you need to make sure you can deal with the family too. Another good question is, how do they want to raise their kids? And how do they want to discipline their kids? So that is a big thing. If you want to have kids, you probably have an idea of how you want to raise them and discipline them. And you're not going to find someone who's 100% wants to do it exactly like you. But hopefully you can find someone 75%. You don't want someone just 10%. So these are some questions you need to have. And you need to know this about yourself. So a lot of these questions that you're going to ask them, be prepared to answer them yourself. Another big question, how do they handle money? Well, if you guys get married, hopefully you're going to be sharing your finances. So you need to know how they handle their money because it's going to affect you, and hopefully it's going to affect you for the rest of your life if you get married. So are they a spender? Are they a saver? So you need to know these things. Do they have a budget? Are they good at investing? You need to know this. How do they handle work and their career, I guess? Do they stick around? Do they have a good track record? Are they constantly in between jobs? Are they quitting jobs because it's always the boss's fault? Are they getting fired from places? Are they making good choices or bad choices with their careers? Because most likely, again, this is going to affect you too. Because if your spouse is constantly losing their job, that's going to have an economic and emotional effect on you and your household. So you just want to know, is that something you want to deal with? So ideally, you're going to find someone who can hold down a job, and you're not going to have to worry about these things. So you need to ask so you're not surprised after you get married. So another thing, how do they handle their emotions? Do they bottle them up? Do they express them freely? How do they handle anger? Are they controlled with it? Do they get violent? Do they just run away and you don't see them for days? How do they handle disappointment, grief? How do they handle being excited, being overly happy? Do they go crazy and end up doing things they regret? How do they handle being embarrassed? So these are all things, again, that you got to know because it's going to come up. They're going to get embarrassed. They're going to get disappointed. They're going to go through grief. And I'll say you really want to know how they handle the negative emotions. Basically, when things don't go right, when things don't go their way, how do they handle that? Because there's some nice people when everything's going perfect and going their way, but as soon as something doesn't go their way, they can become some of the worst people. So you got to ask yourself, do I want to be around that? And do I want my future kids to have that in their parent? And if the answer is no, then be glad you didn't skip to the marriage stage and it's time to exit the relationship. So how do they act when they're wrong? So when they make a mistake, do they apologize? Do they blame other people? Do they change? So when they apologize, is it on their own? Is it only after you present irrefutable evidence? You gotta get them on videotape or record them, and then they're like, "Oh, I guess I said that." Are they blaming other people? It's like, well, it wasn't my fault. This happened, that happened. It's everyone else's fault but theirs. And do they change? So it's one thing to apologize, but if you apologize, but you continually repeat that over and over and over again, then the question is, how sorry are they really? Now, one thing I will say, and I told this with Angeline, and we both agreed to it, there's certain things that you've been doing for a lifetime. And so maybe before you didn't know it was wrong, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be wrong, but it could just be something that your spouse, sorry, not your spouse, it could be something that the person you're dating officially now, maybe it, hurts their feelings, or they just have negative connotation about it or whatever. Or maybe there's a better way. So what you really want to see is steady, continual growth. So most people aren't going to be able to turn around a 10, 15, 20-year habit in just 2 or 3 months. It's going to take time. But you want to see that they're making true, heartfelt change. They're making changes step by step. You see some progress. You look back over 5 or 6 months and you're like, okay, maybe while we were eating, they would have chewed with their mouth open the whole time. Now it's just 70% of the times. And you know they're really trying. So that's an example. So these are all things you want to learn about the other person. And I want to say one thing. As you progress in each step towards marriage, the questions and the things you need to know about the other person before you go to the next step become more and more important, and they become more and more heartfelt, deep questions. It's just questions about them as a person, as a core, their beliefs, their values. So just understand some of these questions may be a little difficult, and a lot of these questions will probably force you to think about yourself more, how you see things, kind of how you live life, and why, what's led you to do this. So it'll be a good exercise for both of you. Okay, so now you know what you should be asking. Now I want to go into the next section. having a plan to remain faithful and to keep each other's trust. So just like the questions got harder and harder and deeper and more to the core of a person's value and just character, each stage you need to have more and more trust invested into each other before you move on to the next stage. Getting married requires a huge amount of trust. You are saying you're putting so much of your future hopes and dreams into the hands of someone else. Not saying that they have full control of it, but your spouse has such a huge influence on how your future goes. So you need to make sure you can trust them. Trust is so important. Now, if you've reached this stage and you've done it right, you should have a good amount of trust. But it's at the point now that if you break this trust, especially by being unfaithful, you're going to deeply, deeply be hurt or hurt that person. Because by this time, you've opened up so much. You let all those walls go down. So now, if your trust is broken, it's going to really hurt. But again, you're not married yet. So if trust is going to be broken, or this person that you're dating officially is not trustworthy, this is where you want to find out. You want to find out now instead of later. So you need to start, you really need to start breaking down this none of your business walls. To an extent, this is healthy during a lot of the earlier steps. Obviously, when you're friends, there's just some really personal stuff that's really none of their business. But now that you guys are official, there's fewer and fewer and fewer things that are none of their business. Now, obviously, when you first become official, there's going to be more. But as it progresses, there should be less and less and less. Things that you're holding back, things that are just for you, that things that are none of your business, or, oh, it's a family thing. You want to understand. It's your job now to explain to them so they can't understand. And you want to make sure that these walls come down before you say yes or before you get down on one knee. You need to decide the information that you both need to share so that you can prove you can continue to be trusted. So again, we're mostly talking about being faithful, but it could be many things. It could be keeping your word. It could just be sometimes you're lying, but it's not necessarily because you're hiding the fact that you're cheating on a person. You shouldn't be lying. So again, that's going to be something that's going to break the trust. So for me and my wife, we decided that during our official stage, that neither one of us was going to hang out one-on-one with a friend of an opposite sex. And obviously, someone who's not just a friend, too. But when you're single, and you're just in a dating stage, you're probably going to have other friends, et cetera, et cetera. And we just decided that it was safer to make sure that we weren't even in a situation where we could cheat on somebody than having friends. Now, does that mean you need to completely cut them off? No. So let's say that you're a girl and you and your boyfriend decide to do like me and my wife did. You're not going to hang out with anyone else from the opposite sex one-on-one. But let's say you have some really good friends that were guys. I'm going to just presume, I almost said assume, but I'm going to presume that this guy doesn't like you. And this is actually one of the reasons this is a good rule, because you never know who had feelings for you. And so sometimes if this person who you thought was just a friend finds out that you become official with someone else, they feel like time's running out on their chances. So a lot of times, this is when they try to get bold. And this is the time they try to get out of the friend zone with you. And so, again, you're just trying to avoid being tempted to cheat on your now official boyfriend or girlfriend. So for us, it was, we're not hanging out one-on-one, but if it's a good friend, just say, hey, let's have like a group hangout for one of our dates one time. I want to invite my good friends. You can invite yours. So you can still have a relationship with them. But now it's obvious when they hang out, they're like, you're hanging out with me and my boyfriend or me and my girlfriend. We're official now, so we're a couple. So I want all of us to be friends. And it's no more of this is our thing over here and me and my boyfriend is separate. No, it's like now you hang out with us. Some people get upset about that, but I think for me, it was worth not having a situation that I later regret. So I'm not saying I have friends who would have tried, but I wasn't going to take the chance. And so I think that's the mindset you need to have. Now, here's some other things you may want to include in your talk to figure out what you want to do to make sure you keep your trust and you don't break it. At this stage, I'm sorry, but there's no more keeping your phones from each other. Me and my wife now, and back then, we had the passwords to our phone. My wife still has access at any second. If she wants to see my phone, she can go through my text. She can go through my social media. She can go through WhatsApp, GroupMe, whatever. And she can look through it. I encourage her to do that so then she can see there's nothing going on, and that'll build trust. Another thing is deactivating all of your profiles on your past dating apps. And it's probably best to just delete them. You're dating officially. Why do you need a dating app? If something happens where it doesn't work out with you two, you can just re-download the dating apps. They almost always save your profile in the cloud anyway, so it's not going to be too hard to get it back up. But again, you want to avoid any type of temptation, someone trying to reach out to you, and I don't know, maybe you guys just had a big fight or argument, and then someone reaches out to you. You just don't want to do that. You don't want to ruin a good thing for one night. So delete those dating apps. Delete the dating apps. So here's another thing. If you like to go out with just the guys or just the girls, and your friends are still single, you need to talk as a couple and consider what you guys consider crossing the line and what's not crossing the line. What's just being friendly with the opposites and what's being too flirty and like a first step towards cheating. So you guys need to figure that out. Agree on it beforehand, before anything happens. So when you go out with your guys or you out with the girls, you know exactly what you can do and can't do. So you can come up with a plan where you can still have fun, still enjoy yourself. But especially guys, if a group of girls comes up to your guy group, then you just know, hey, I can't be a wingman. It's going to have to be on you guys. I'll keep the conversation going, but it's going to be known that I'm taken. Again, you don't want to ruin a good thing. You don't want to have, I had one too many drinks. or, I don't know what happened, I just got carried away. You don't want that to ruin something good. So let's recap real quick. We define being official. You have titles. You're exclusive. You like them enough to not want to date anyone else. But could you marry them? You don't know. That's what you're going to find out. So how do I find that out? Well, here's some questions. You should be learning as much about them as possible before you decide to get engaged. Get to know their family. How do they handle money? How do they handle work? How do they handle their emotions? Especially the negative emotions. They need to handle them in a healthy way. Now, no one's going to be perfect, so there's always going to be one emotion or other that they could probably do better. So a good test is at some point, not when they're emotional, but to bring it up and say, hey, I noticed you don't really handle grief well. I'm just making something up. How do you feel about that? And see if they are aware of that or if they're receptive to you. And again, willing to learn. And another good one is, how do they act when they're wrong? Get to know their family. Can you be around this family for the rest of your life? Because you're not just marrying the person, you're marrying the person and their family. How do they handle money? Do they just spend it like there's no tomorrow? Are they hoarders? You need to know. How do they handle work? Can they hold a job? Do they have a good career? Are they constantly making bad business decisions? You need to know, because it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your future kids. How do they handle their emotions, and especially their negative emotions? Do they take it out on other people? Do they handle it in a healthy way? How do they do it? And I will say, you should, if you notice that there's an area that they don't handle well, and everybody's going to have an area that they need to improve on, but bring it up to them and ask them how they think they handle this emotion. See if they're going to be honest about it or deflecting. So you want them to be honest about it, to recognize that they have an issue, and be willing to listen to how they could do better. You also want to know, how do they act when they're wrong? You want someone who can admit when they're wrong. Now, no one likes admitting when they're wrong, but you need someone who can admit and be like, okay, you're right. That was my fault. I'm sorry. You need to also have a plan to remain faithful. We talked about this. You need to define actions that would build trust and define actions that would break trust. Now, each couple will have its own unique list. So this is why you guys need to come together and figure that out. Make sure you talk about this very, very, very early in the official stage. If you guys do all this, you're on a good path to having a good understanding, a good grasp. If you want to move on and get engaged with this person, maybe you just want to stay to find out a little longer, or you may need to move on. Either way, step-by-step mindset is going to help protect your heart and help protect the other person's. So thank you again for tuning into the podcast. I'll see you next week. It's going to be fun. It's the engagement stage. So I'll see you guys on the next podcast. Have a good one.